Welcome for another webinar on snakebite envenoming and challenges for India. This is like every day it's introduction is initiative by two NGOs from Kerala, Kottayam Nature Society and Alapi Natural History Society. I think over to you, Kedar. We can start.
So good evening, friends. Day before yesterday, we talked about venomous snakes of India in general. Okay. And snakebite envenoming and what are the challenges for India. Today we'll be talking it. I know that it will be a little more flooding of information for you guys. The slides the information is too much, but I will try to summarize it little bit in between. And it's not a difficult subject as such, but it's a really kind of a complex subject. You will understand as we go ahead. So the first some slides, I just want to give you a kind of overall picture of snakebite envenoming in India with certain statistics. So one of the great work which was done on a snakebite statistics in India was in 2011 publication of the snakebite mortality in India, nationally representative mortality survey. Many people have done. It is a very exhaustive document. You should go and study this paper, and how they did this whole survey. But generally, it is also come out with that, general numbers, what we can think that India has snakebite death and mortality in India statistically by doing a representative surveys in different localities. So though the data was taken of 2001 and 2003 in this survey, and the publication was done in 2011, it shows nearly 13 states in that data with a high number of deaths, that is 3 for nearly 1 lakh population, high deaths during the monsoon. But if you are looking at 2011 publication and looking at this data, if I ask you first how many malaria deaths in India, during that time, official figure of government India was around 30,000 to 40,000 deaths in 2011. Now, if I say, what do you think the number of snakebite deaths in India? This I am talking about that one mortality survey report as such. And then it says around 45,900 with 99% confidence limit. That is the highest statistically confidence limit. If you go say 90% confidence limit, that can be from say 30,000 to 70,000 or 80,000 deaths, that kind of range. And around 200,000 loss of limbs. That is also morbidity to the snakebite cases. So if I compare those data during that time, there is kind of one snakebite death for every malaria death in India around 2011 data if I see. And we do so many things for malaria, but we hardly do anything to reduce the snakebite death mortality in India. Now, if you take today, probably malaria deaths are gone down because the government of India has decided to reduce malaria by 2030 to nil. And we are doing a lot of work on that. But snakebite deaths probably remain same. If you take this paper of Salve et al. From the Dharwad, what they have done is they have taken different data from the Health Management Information System of India, and they have analyzed the data of Health Information System, which is a government system. So in 2017-2008, they found around 2,492 snake bites reported in a government system, and around 9,200 deaths. But those deaths are not, assigned to snake bites only. Its deaths are due to animal bites and stings under that heading. In 2018-2019, we have around 2,30,950 snake bite incidences reported in a government system across India, where death bites due to animal bites and stings in the same system is around 8,890. If you just take this data from this particular thing and go to a lot of different small studies has been done. So there is this one study was done in West Bengal, in a South Paragana district, which shows, factually that 7.23% snake bites are only reported, deaths reported in India. And around 22.19% of snakebite victims only attend the hospitals in 24 South Paraganas during that year. But generally, that our rural areas are similar, our health systems are similar. The population of snakes in those areas also, maybe the space is different, but there are population. So probably this data, if you represent with the overall Indian data, I think we are only getting tip of icebergs of the whole snakebite scenario in India. Now I'm just showing across, there are a lot of data available individually from different papers and different studies done across India. Now this, I am just taking ambulance services. There is a GVK paper published for 2014, 1 year ambulance services, So they enrolled nearly 29,461 cases in a GVK ambulances in that year, who use 108. Out of that, they have given a lot of data, how many were admitted into the hospital, how many were death before even the EMS arrival. So there are 107 deaths before EMS arrival, 69 died before reaching the hospital. And they also followed up with some of the cases which were admitted into the hospital for another 48 hours. So that data is also available. So if you look at this whole small data is available across different things, we know that snakebite mortality and morbidity is a huge burden in India, and we need to do seriously something about it. Now, once this is all system data, or a different doctors have done research, or different group has done the surveys. Now, we have nearly thousands of media cuttings, collected across about snakebite incidences. Now, one of the thing, when I work in MP a lot, so this is when I was working there was a 10-year boy, who died on the way to district hospital because a PSC doctor probably just must have injected Avil and just send him to the district hospital, because those doctors are not that confident to treat snake bites. So many times at public health centers, patients are not treated of snake bite patient particularly, but sent directly to district hospital. Reasons are more lack of confidence, lack of equipment, lack of medicine, lack of resources. But many times this death occurs between the PSC to the district hospital, because once a snake bite envenoming happens, you have a very less time to treat patients. So with all this background, if you compare this with the global scenario, now snakebite envenoming is reported under neglected tropical disease with WHO. WHO has come out with a proper strategy to combat snakebite disease. So around 5.8 billion people are at risk of encountering a venomous snake. Due to their habits, due to their occupation, due to their staying around places where snakes are found. There are many reasons for that. So around 7,400 people gets bitten every day by snakes across the globe, mainly in Asia and Africa. Daily 220 to 380 men, women, children die as a result, adding up to 2.7 million cases of envenoming and around 81,000 to 1,38,000 deaths per year globally. Now, we all are looking at COVID and Corona situation under lockdown about death numbers and the patients. It's not comparison at all, but still, if you look at a snakebite deaths, and the thing we do to sort them out is very, very less. The economic cost of snakebite envenoming is also unmanageable in most of the countries. It affects not only the victims, and most of the time their whole families. In an agrarian economy, most of the time in agriculture land, the person who is earning the bread for the family, like farmer who is tilling into the land or cutting the crops, they get beaten and they die. So eventually the whole family is also affected. So let's go back to what can be the reasons for so many snake bites and so many snake bite deaths. The first, in India, we have a high number of snake species of medical importance in agriculture areas, and manual agriculture practices also results in exposure to bites. So in our rural areas where there is agriculture practices, economies, there is a snake bite exposure is more. Second, in the same areas, there is a lot of reliance on traditional and quack treatments. It's a huge subject. I work in a rural area, so I can tell you, when a snake bite happens, the first thing person does is go to the village mantrik or a tantrik. If there is no mantrik or a healer in a village, they try to contact somebody out. I will tell you an example. Again, in MP Mandla district, I met a patient who was bitten by a snake, and his brother had called a mantrik who was 60 kilometers away. So mantrik was giving mantras on a phone, and a mobile phone was stuck to the patient's ear. And people do all these things in our rural areas. There are advertisements in the paper that contact Oza to treat snake bites. So all these traditional and quack treatments also creates a huge problem in the rural areas to sort out snake bite deaths. Third thing, the habits of the people. Walking at night without light, no adequate footwear, sleeping on grounds, all these different practices exposes to him to more of snake bite cases. Because snakes sometimes comes around us for rodents. So when you are sleeping and there are rats around, or there is a warmth, as snakes are cold-blooded animal, they need external factors to control their body temperature. So for whatever reason, they come around our living, and if you don't take proper care in rural areas, you get opportunity or you get exposed to the snake bites. Fourth most important reason is unprepared and unequipped medical facility. I am not using a word here, they don't know. There are a lot of doctors know about it little bit here and there. There are a lot of groups who are doing a good work in many parts of India. But at PSC, which is our basic health unit in a rural area, it's mostly unprepared and unequipped to handle snake bites in that particular locality. The another reason is there is a lack of widely disseminated standardized first aid and treatment protocols, but it has improved now. We have a ICMR publish All India National Snakebite Management Protocol, which is available on ICMR website. I can send it to you. It's also available on my website if you want to download. Another reason of a lot of deaths sometimes is inadequate distribution, availability, publicity, and low potency or inefficacy of antivenom serum in some of the areas. We saw in the venomous snakes that it's not only 4 venomous snakes against which there is a polyvalent antivenom available, but there are many in some areas, other medically important snakes against which this antivenom doesn't work. We'll see to that later in the part in detail. Another thing is lack of knowledge about snake habits and behavior. We don't know how snakes behave, where they stay, how they come in contact with people, So the prevention also we need to do a lot and study the snake habits, behavior, as well as people's behavior, so we can prevent snake bite happening itself. Now, this is a problem, one which happens in India, whose responsibility snake bite is. Okay, if you go to Ministry of Environment and Forest, and if you talk with them about snakes, all snakes are protected under Wildlife Act. Venom, it's under protected list as a part of wildlife trophy. It's a part of snake, so it is protected. You cannot just start extracting venom, carry it, use it. If you are just using a snake venom, carry it, extract it, it's illegal under Wildlife Protection Act. You can be prosecuted. So for any research, collection of venom, studies of snakes, you all need permission under Wildlife Act from a respective PC safe of the states. Snake bite is the largest human-animal conflict in our country. We have bear conflict, elephant conflict, tiger conflicts. We all heard about this. But when it comes to snake bite, we generally don't count it as a human-animal conflict in our conservation model, which need to be. If you go to Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, it's a major health issue. It is under neglected tropical disease. You need a standardized treatment protocols. You need antivenom research and development. You need training to medical professionals and clinical management of snakebite envenoming. You also need snakebite envenoming mortality and morbidity, in rural areas, because it's very severe. It's under health issue completely. So we have these 2 ministries where this whole ball lies. I'm not saying they don't work. When we go to any of these ministries to ask some permissions, they happily support us and they give us those permissions. But there is no one ownership for this problem. Snakebite envenoming mortality is also part of human right issue, as majority of the case happens to the poor people, under poverty people, because of their living condition. They stay in such areas where snakes are found. I really do not know whether we have any ministry who takes care of human rights in India, so I'm not getting into that. So after Ministry of Environment and Forest and Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, this another thing also happens in India. 6 states compensate snakebite deaths under Natural Calamity Act through Revenue Department. And it's good that a lot of families who gets really shocked after losing something to snakebite are compensated by the government on a state under Natural Calamity Act. But then we treat snakebite as a natural calamity. So the whole aggressive empowerment, aggressive training, aggressive planning, which need to be done for the snakebite envenoming reduction and mitigation, is still lacking in our Indian systems. Now, once you got this whole scenario, let's get to the base, why all these causes are there, is about the venom. I showed you in last my talk how the venom is, produced in the venom glands. There are venom glands, duct, and all those things. So there is a venom apparatus in snakes which produce venom, and then the snake injects into the prey body. Sometime accidentally, it also gets injected into a human when snake try to defend itself. So venom is nothing but, it's a 90% of driveway of protein, and then there are a lot of enzymes, with a polypeptide toxins. In neurotoxic venoms, there are two kind of venoms you have: postsynaptic and a presynaptic venoms. So if it's a cobra bite, then the venom is a postsynaptic venom, which bind to acetylcholine receptors at a motor end plate. Where in presynaptic venoms, it releases acetylcholine at the nerve ending. So the action is little different. But why I'm showing you all this, if there are a lot of doctors here, they understand it more. That in a cobra cases, because if it's a respiratory paralysis, and you need to revive the patient, you can still use the acetylcholinesterase drugs like neostigmine and prostigmine to revive the patient from the respiratory paralysis. Then there are a lot of enzymes like digestive hydrolase and hyaluronidase. These are different venom constituents which affects a body of a patient. Particularly in vipers, it contains a procoagulant enzymes which stimulates blood clotting. But paradoxically, this whole process results in uncoagulable blood. So there is a coagulopathy happens. So these are different kind of venoms we have in India. There are a lot of effects of every venoms on our different body parts. About 50% of bites by vipers and nearly 30% of cobras do not result in any sign of symptoms of envenoming. When snake bites somebody as a defense, not necessarily snakes will inject venom. Snakes can control their venom injection. There has to be a musculature force on the head. So many times it happens, it's just a scratch, or a snake bites but don't have time to inject venom, don't inject venom. So we call it a dry bite. Now, this dry bite is beneficial to all tantrics and mantrics, because in our rural areas, when 10 people gets bitten, say, by snakes, as a law of average, say 50% are bitten by non-venomous snakes. Nothing is going to happen to them. And the remaining 5 people gets bitten by venomous snakes. Nearly 50% of the time, there is no venom injected. So they are not going to show any venoming symptoms into them. So what happens, 10 people goes to Mantrik, 8 survives because there is no venom. 2 dies, and then Mantrik says they have done too many sins. That's why he or she cannot save them. So we generally always remember 8 people who have survived, and we forget 2 people who have died. And in rural areas, people keep, all this trust and faith on all these ozas, mantriks, tantriks, healers. It's not only into, in rural areas, into ozas and tantriks, but in some of the time, I also see the similar thing is happening when people start treating snake bites with the stones and milk. In some of the missionary hospitals I have seen, they try treating snake venom or the snake bites with a stone and milk. So it's always across the through of the wavelength of India that this thing happens. But people survive because there is no venom or there is a dry bite. Now, if you go to PSCs and CSCs data, it still also shows around similar kind of results. It's not apple to apple comparison, but 10 people goes to PSCs and again 8 survives, 2 dies. So how do you compare this data, and how do you try to improve this data? Because everything happens in a rural area. People start only trusting or having a faith on doctors and hospitals once they start seeing the results. If they don't see the results, they will still keep going to the tantriks, mantriks, ozas. So it's a challenge for us. Second, another problem or another misconception we have about is snakes do not, कुछ खाया हुआ सांप है और snakes has eaten something, then it may not inject venom. But it's not like that. Snakes do not exhaust their venom after several strikes or after eating their prey. They're always producing the venom. Third is bites by small snakes and large snakes of some species should be treated at a same level of seriousness. There is nothing like छोटा सांप है तो कुछ नहीं होगा, बड़ा सांप ही काटता है, ऐसा नहीं है. All species, those who have ability to inject venom, whether they are small or big, can inject venom. Now let's again go back, revisit our medically important snakes. You have binocellate cobra, naja, throughout many parts of India. So the general signs and symptoms are swelling, local pain, local necrosis, blistering, descending paralysis. I'm not getting into these symptoms. You can have this presentation, or you can get the the medical, whole protocol about treating. It has everything into it. Crates also, then the Russell's viper and Soskell viper. But let me tell you again, the 20 whole blood clotting tests done at a bedside of the patient immediately on arrival can tell you whether the patient has coagulopathy and can tell you whether there is a venom symptoms or not, to start a treatment as early as possible. Now, our polyvalent antivenom only treats or is made for these 4 common venomous snakes, common in majority part of India. I will not say in some parts of India they are not common at all. There are different kind of mix of other medical important snakes. So other than these 4, we have these 6 crates causes a lot of bites across India, in the eastern part of India, in Himalayas, in some of the western part of India. So these crates are also available where our antivenom do not work. Then we have 5 species of cobra found in some of the regions of India. Other than binocerat cobra, you have a melanistic same binocerat cobra species found in Himachal Pradesh and Kashmir, or in those upper elevation regions, and our antivenoms shows they doesn't work with it because same species can have a variation on venoms. Then we have a Central Asian cobra, again in the northern parts of India. We have a Andaman cobra, we have king cobra, though bites are not reported so much, it's there. Then we also have a monocerat cobra in eastern parts and some of the Bihar and other areas. In some of the parts also, our antivenom do not work against these snake venom or envenoming. Then we have 6 nearly pit vipers across India, causes coagulopathy, some fatality in some of the regions and some of the major cases. Like if you take the upper one, the white-lipped pit viper, Sikkim pit viper, and the mountain pit viper, it causes a lot of bites in Himalayan regions, in Sikkim, in Northeast India. There is a tail spotted viper. There is a hump-nosed pit viper of South India here, which also causes mortality and sometimes a lot of envenoming and coagulopathy with the patients. You have a Himalayan pit viper, which also causes bites in Himachal. So there are other medically important snakes where our present antivenom do not consider as effectiveness. There may be paraspecificity or cross-reactivity in some parts, but majority-wise, it doesn't work in those areas. So let's go, after looking at these medically important snakes and venoms, let's look at these antivenoms. Antivenoms are nothing but a pepsin refined fragment of IgG, which is produced from the serum plasma of a horse that has been hyperimmunized with the venom of 1 or more species of these snakes. So in India, we use a polyvalent, or also called as a polyspecific antivenom against these 4 species: Naja naja, Bungarus cellulus, Daboia russelli, and Echis carinatus, binocerat cobra, common crate, Russell's viper, and a Soskell viper. Because since conventional wisdom for many years has told us that these big 4 are responsible for majority of snake bites in India, but current taxonomy, distribution data, snakebite data shows that that's not the case. Some of the areas like northern parts of India, northeast of India, West Bengal, some of the parts of West and South India, there are some species against which this antivenom doesn't work. So there are 4 species of cobras, 7 species of crates, 2 species of viper, which we have one covered under the polyvalent antivenom, but we have one subspecies of Soskell, which is found in Rajasthan and Gujarat, called Shochereki. Now, there are not much studies done, but our antivenom sometimes do not work in those cases. There are at least 4 species of pit vipers causing serious envenoming in India. We do not have any antivenom for that. We have around 7 antivenom producers in India, and their combined capacity is nearly 2 million vials, or it can be more than that, If you are looking at how much venom is needed for so much vials, generally it's not huge. Like for so many vials, there are different data sets available. Say like for you need a 800 cobra to 2000 cobras to produce 2 million vials. Out of that, then another 2000 Russell's viper. So it's not too huge. They have taken how much venom can be given by a snake, and so you need not a huge venom to produce this kind of antivenom. You need a very less venom to produce even a 2 million vials. And we have a capability and we have a capacity to produce that much. And I think production is happening. So it's not unavailability as a producer level, but probably unavailability on a ground level about logistic distribution patterns. We are lacking completely. Current information on medically important snakes in India is also very complex, and further data collection is needed. Epidemiological studies are needed to ascertain the real picture to start having a better improved antivenom. I'm just showing you here. I'm not getting back into the snakebite treatment protocol, but there are certain antivenom administration criteria as given. It cannot be given by anyone, anywhere, in any position, but it has to be administered through IV. There are chances of anaphylactic shock. Therefore, it can be administered only under medical supervision. Antivenom is a scarce and costly commodity and should only be administered when there are definite signs of venomation. Antivenom can neutralize unbound free-flowing venom in the body, or also which is entered into the cell, that can all be neutralized, and further act of venom can be stopped by using antivenom. If there is evidence of coagulopathy primarily detected by 20 WBCT, then you can administer antivenom. If there is evidence of neurotoxicity like ptosis, external ophthalmoplegia, muscle paralysis, then you can administer the antivenom. But understand one thing, antivenom is not the only treatment. Okay. Yes, it will stop further action of venom. It will stop whatever free flowing venom into your body. It will neutralize it. But the venom which is already acted on your body, which is already, bound with different things, need to be treated symptomatically. If there is a muscle paralysis and respiratory paralysis, you need to put the patient on respiratory support. You need to manage the airway. If there is a renal injury, then you need to go for a dialysis. Many times what happens is that only the antivenom is given in some of the areas, and we don't look at this other symptomatic treatment which is needed to save the patient. So if you are looking at present today's antivenom, it's not, I am not, personally, I don't believe into a statement saying that our antivenom doesn't work at all. Yes, it works in some of the areas, and many lives are also saved today because of that. But there are a lot of shortcomings. It does not include a regional diversity of medically important snake species, negating its effectiveness in many regional geographies of India. Same species of snakes also shows an extreme regional variation in their venom design, reducing effectiveness of antivenom produced from venom derived from South Indian species of Big Four. Potency of present antivenom is very low. The neutralizing capacity of antivenom for a particular quantity of venom is low. Before 1950s or 1960s, the potency was very high. We really don't know when this potency was changed. Our Indian pharmacopoeia standards, when it is changed and for what reasons it was changed, we are not any aware about it. But I think we need to work on increasing potency of our antivenoms. At the moment, standard dose of antivenom is 10 vials. If there is a positive envenoming symptoms are there, you can start with standard dose of 10 vials through saline. In our rural areas, government gives it free, but as you know that many times these kind of free antivenoms are not available, and many times in a government hospital systems, people don't have faith, so they try to go to private hospitals also. We have a lot of good private doctors across India doing superb work on snakebite mitigation. And they are treating thousands of patients and saving them. But it's not a system, it's localized in their own personal areas or personal geographies. So present price is plus minus 600 rupees of MRP. Government has controlled that price. But in many places I have seen the distribution level, there is a black market of antivenom, and it is inflated to 900 rupees and 1000. And if you know that it's a 10 vial dose, so if somebody gets bitten by, say, and there is a venomation, and the standard dose of 10, the basic expense is around 6,000 rupees for only antivenom vials. And in the rural areas, that's a huge price in a way. I can also add into that the Prime Minister's that medical Arogya Seva card also covers snakebite treatment. So if you are not registering into it in the rural areas, tell the people to register under it, so they can be also covered for snakebite treatment. As I told you, the production is not an issue at the moment as a numbers, as a volume, but distribution and storage are major issues in our rural areas. Many times it's a tendered process. Government float a tender to get antivenoms. So we need a lot of antivenom in monsoon, and governments float tender earlier. But with all that process, probably you get antivenom into your PSCs and CSCs maybe after the monsoon. So there is a lot of unavailability on a ground level. Also, storage is the issue. Earlier, used to have a monovalent antivenom liquid one. So it used to be stored in the refrigerations. After that, all the companies started producing lyophilized antivenom, which can be stored at a room temperature in a dark and a cool place. You don't need refrigeration to store these antivenoms. But I see in many of the PSCs, rural areas, the pharmacist is there. The antivenoms are stored in the refrigeration in the freezer. So many times it's completely frozen. I have discussed with this lot of people who produce these antivenoms, and they say though it's refrigerated, the potency will be there, but it will take a lot of time for it to thaw. So if you have a snakebite patient and you take 3 to 4 hours just to thaw the antivenom, you probably will not be able to apply. So please do not store these lyophilized products into a refrigerated or a freezer. It can be stored under dark and cool place in a room temperature in most of the rural areas. Let's get venoms and antivenoms now, the first aid. There are so many first aids, different protocols floating around. Everybody tells different. So we have come out with a simple protocol. Just reassure the patient, because if a patient is in a shock and everything, that can be a problematic. Immobilize completely. Don't allow patient to move at all. Get to hospital fast and tell the doctor of a time of bite and symptoms if it is happening on the way, or on the phone also you can tell the doctor if there are any symptoms happening. So we call it do it right. Remember the right, reassure, immobilize, get to hospital fast, tell the time and symptoms. So just follow that. A lot of people tell you about pressure bandage techniques and all those. They are a conditional, only can be used sometimes with the right technique in a neurotoxic bites, but not with hemotoxic bites. On ground, you don't know what kind of venom or what kind of snakes is bitten somebody. So do not practice any kind of tourniquet. Do not practice any kind of pressure bandage, but immobilize patient completely. Reassure the patient, get to hospital as fast as possible. What not to do is a big list. Do not eat or drink anything unless allowed by medical sources. Do not engage in strenuous physical activities. Do not apply oral suction to bite like they show in a movie. Hero comes rushing to save heroine, If there is some venom on the site of bite and you have any injury in your mouth, then probably you can also get envenomated if it get onto your circulatory system. I also want to take, today I saw a lot of videos, on a WhatsApp of a group of some boys showing you a syringe, and telling you how to use it to extract venom if you get bitten. Please do not follow that. You cannot extract venom by using any kind of extractor. There are enough scientific data available, which scientists have done by using a mock venom, injecting into a patient with a radioactive isotopes and trying to extract it after. So these all extractors have only extracted certain oozing blood and other fluid, but they have not been successful to extract that mock venom which was injected into the patients. So it will also fail in a real life situation. So do not depend on all these extractors at all. Do not cut or incise bite marks, or do not extract any kind of venom there. Do not apply either hot or cold packs. Do not wash with soap and water. Generally, any animal bites we wash with soap and water. In case of snake bites, we specifically advise not to do that, because when you wash with soap and water, there is a lot of spreading of venom on the site of bite, which is into the cells, because there is a pressure. So it increases flow of venom. So do not wash with soap and water. Do not waste time or take any risk trying to kill, bag, or bring in offending snakes. So these are a lot of things not to do. But again, going back to the first aid, I will tell you, do it right, reassure, immobilize, get to hospital, tell the time and symptoms. That's it. You don't need to do anything. If you can take a picture of snake, carry with you from far away from your mobiles, then probably we can identify the snakes and it can help you. But otherwise, don't try to catch a snake or kill it and take it to the hospital. It's not needed for treatment. Tourniquets, I want to talk a little bit more. Lot of times, even we have told in our earlier years about the snakebite first aid, tie tourniquet on your shoulder, tie tourniquet on your thighs. But tourniquets gives you a risk of ischemia and loss of limb. There is an increased risk of necrosis, increased risk of massive, neurotoxic blockade when tourniquet is released. I have seen many times some of the patients who comes in the rural area with tight tourniquets on the shoulder. as similar as if a doctors remove the tourniquet, next moment the patient goes into cardiac arrest. And I have seen it actually happening on ground. So tourniquet is always a risky, They do not work also at all. Venom is not slowed by tourniquet in several experimental studies as well as in the field conditions. And tourniquet also give patients a false sense of security, which encourages them to delay the journey to hospital. So do not use tourniquets at all. But if somebody comes to you with a tourniquet tied for a treatment, there is a method to handle tourniquet. If you are in a medical facility, you always have a blood pressure cup. So apply blood pressure cup above the tourniquet, completely fill it, and then release tourniquet and slowly release the blood pressure cup, and then you can handle that problem. Lot of people also still looks at those fang marks. Two big fang marks means venomous snake bites, and no fang marks is non-venomous snake bite. But please remember, this can only happen if there is a very academic bite. A snake is biting me, I am not removing my hand at all or a leg at all, and then you can get those two big fang marks. Many times it doesn't happen. You are going to pull your hands or leg. Snake is also many times just trying to run, or snake sometimes bite through shoes or clothes. So there can be just a scratch, can be a single puncture mark. You never know. Or sometimes in crate bites, you don't see any puncture marks also. So please do not depend on these unreliable patterns of bite marks. There are two huge books. One is Indian National Standard Treatment Guidelines for Management of Snake Bite, which is published by Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. You can download it from ICMR website also. There is a guidelines for the management of snake bites by WHO, but WHO guidelines are very global in nature. But Indian standard management of snake bite guidelines are very specific to India. So start using this for those doctors. For you, if you are not doctor, what you can do is you can take these guidelines, take printouts and distribute in PSCs and CSCs in a district hospitals if you want. Now, after going through this whole complex data of snakebite cases in India, venoms, antivenoms, different medically important snakes, first aid, treatment protocols, last year, WHO has come out with a very, very strong document for strategy of prevention and control of snakebite envenoming. There is a objective of a snakebite strategy that by 2030 will reduce 50% of snakebite mortality across the globe. The major part of the strategy is empower and engaging with communities at local level, ensuring safe and effective treatment, strengthening health system, and increasing partnership and collaboration. But remember one thing, snakebite envenoming is preventable and snakebite envenoming is treatable. Now, I am just trying to group all the challenges for snakebite envenoming death or death mitigation in India. So our biggest challenge is another one was superstitions, quack, traditional healers. We have so many superstitions about snake. So the whole snakebite incidence is generally treated with a lot of superstitions, mantriks, tantrics. So we need to overcome that. Exposure to snakes in rural living or agriculture practices is also high. So we need to work with people and teach them certain practices and ask them to avoid certain practices, Like we know that if you are staying in a rural area in a house, and if you have a poultry or a cattle shed very close to the place where you are sleeping, probably snakes may come there. If you have a stored grain very close to where you are sleeping, then in the night snakes may come to eat rats there, which will come for the stored grain. So how exposures increases. If you have a wood stock around your house, there is a lot of hiding place for snakes. And when you go and take the firewood in the rural areas out, you might get bitten. So there are many, many practices which can be avoided or improved on to prevent the snake bites. Preparing our health system is also very, very paramount. You need a trained doctors, you need a antivenom availability, you need a resources and equipment available at PSCs and CSCs. Another that we also need epidemiological research, mapping of medically important snakes. We need to understand which snakes are found in which part of India. We need to have a local venom extracted. We need to create a local antivenom for those areas. We also need a lot of new venom research and new innovations to have a better treatment, better protocols. And we also need a right, effective and timely available antivenom in our rural areas. So these are the challenges. If we can, they looks very simple, but our complex system of managing health, complex system of Wildlife Protection Act for venom research and everything is little bit sometimes, blockades in doing a lot of good work on ground. So I am going through some of the works happening now. These all works, either I am doing it or I am a collaborator in those work, or I know those people who are doing that work. But other than these works, there can be more, good work happening across India. Only I don't know about them, so I'm not keeping it here. It's not that these are the only people who are working in this field and trying to overcome these challenges. So one of the challenge was always medical preparedness. So I run a campaign called Zero Bite, Empowering Communities campaign, where we create a snake bite emergency groups at district and panchayat level. United Nations Sustainable Goals, there are 2 goals. The goal number 3 says the better living condition and better health for everybody. And the goal number 15 says that halt biodiversity loss. So we have to also work on both goals for a snake bite death mitigations. So I'm just telling you, sometimes I dream, we have a district hospitals in India as per Niti Aayog list, 734 district hospitals. We have a 5,396 CSCs. We have a 25,308 PSCs, and we have 1,53,655 sub-centers in India. This is our health system. So sometimes I dream it's very easy, It's not difficult to train 25,308 PSC doctors. Is it difficult to have one expert at every district hospital, hardly 735 numbers? But once you start thinking and trying to work on the ground, it's a huge challenge. The number looks very small. I worked last whole year into 3 districts of Mandla, Balaghat and Panna, and I have managed to do in 7 months only 3 district hospitals training, 5 CSCs, 24 PSCs, 4 forest department training, and 1 media workshop. So it's not easy to gather all the people together, get permissions, get all officials together. They are also busy. All doctors are busy into their duties to get them for training. But I think there is a good way. If you concentrate on the district hospitals, CSCs and PSCs training, most of the time we'll be able to manage preparedness at our health system at a ground level. So that's why we run this whole Zero Bite Empowering Communities project. Other than that, we have a Indian Snakebite Initiative, which is some like-minded people and team have come together and we work across. So there is a very good app called Serpent. You can download on your Android phones in that. If you go to different, what you call interfaces there, once you get into the register into the app and you go ahead, there is an Indian Snake Field Guide. There is an Interact where you can actually photograph a snake and send it to experts for identification for either a snake bite treatment or for your knowledge. If it's for snake bite treatment, across India, around 7 experts, we all are there. We are immediately pinged and you get identification if possible from the picture. It's not always possible from the pictures to identify, but if possible, we'll try to give you identification as soon as possible. There is a list of treatment hospitals. There is a snake rescuer list. If you have a snake around you, you can find out the snake rescuer. There is a lot of resources on snake bite first aid available on the app. There are different films on snake bites, different work or posters on snake bites available there. So you can download them. So this is a very good app. And you can see this map. We have so many users. So when we have so many users started uploading different information of which snakes are found around you, rescuer snakes, incidence of snake bites, probably we'll have a very huge data which we can actually use to reduce snake bite death mitigation in India. So if you don't have, please use this app called Serpent. I will tell you what you can do with this app later. Madras Crocodile Bank Trust and Center for Herpetology is always leading in all these works. Romulus Whitaker, Padma Shri Romulus Whitaker is always our guider and advisor in doing a lot of works in this field. One of the things which they did, there are a lot of movies which they have produced, they have done a lot of work. But one of the things which I really liked is the last year they did 310 school programs across 7 states, which they have done with the local people. They have trained ASHA workers. But one of the things which is very, very good is that with one another NGO partner, they have actually put in a South Indian local language list of do's and don'ts on the back of notebooks. So 2 lakh of notebooks are distributed into rural areas. such an amazing idea, you know. Even we can find such innovative and amazing idea at a local level to spread messages about snake bite. I think it will help us a lot. Then there is a Jerry Martin project which Jerry Martin runs in Mysore. You know, they are working on snake bite behavioral studies and how you can look at avoiding snake bites and prevent snake bites, and how can you reduce a snake bite conflict mitigations. So there is having a nice Russell Swiper ecology. If you want to volunteer, please contact them. If you want to help them in any way, contact Jerry Martin on this email ID. But it's a fantastic work happening there to help us. Then if you are going into a very rocket science or a new research on venoms and antivenoms, and who can give us a lot of good data, which is already they have done a lot of work, is the evolutionary venomics lab at Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore. They are doing some cutting edge technology research on venoms and antivenoms, and probably in future there are a lot of other labs that are also working, like CCMB in Hyderabad, Tejpur University, Mysore University. But I don't have a personal data from them to show it here what they're exactly doing, but they are doing a very good work. There is the Snakebite Healing and Education Society. They have 2 advocacy videos, Snakebite Need Not Kill, Be Aware and Be Safe, and The Dates Don't Talk. Nice videos to show the impact of snakebite across India. Then you have the Society for Nature Conservation in the West Bengal, and the Bioinformatics and Technology Exchange, you know, of the snakebite mitigation in India, which is run by Bangor University of Germany with the Society for Nature and Conservation. So a lot of good things are happening, and you can either support them, help them, volunteer with them. So what can you do actually in this kind of situation? One, involved in awareness and outreach programs in your area. If you don't have any training, we can train you, and you can train others locally. Find out nearest hospitals which keeps antivenom and treat victims. Update on a Serpent app. So anybody can go on the app and find out if they get bitten, which is the nearest hospital which has antivenom and a treatment available. Report snake sightings, snake rescues, and snake bite incidences again on a Serpent app. So we get actual good data all across India of this thing happening. If you are a snake rescuer, register again on a Serpent Act. Follow the SOPs for rescue work which is given on there. If you want, you can organize doctors training in your areas. We can provide assistance with expert trainer doctors for that. If you have a lot of funding, it's always good to support this kind of initiatives, you know, across which I shown you the examples. So that was the overall challenges, how it can be overcome. But you generally understand what a complex system we have and how a complex situation is there on ground about a snake bites. It's a human-animal conflict. I call it a lost frontier of a human-animal conflict. Nobody is owning it, you know. Not wildlife departments, not health departments, anybody, not conservation movement, not health movement, you know. Everywhere it's happening, small works in a different pockets. We need all over India, one push, one system, all across it to combat this, one mitigation measures, or to get these measures for our rural populations. It's not only rural population. I know in Mumbai also, where I stay, every year some of the hospitals always have 15 to 20 deaths because of snake bite. The patient comes to them, you know. So it's not that it's only rural area. Probably this is the only one accident or a disease, you can call it, where there is no difference between rural and urban person. A person getting bitten in Mumbai or a person getting bitten in some rural area has the same fate today if the doctors are not trained, if antivenom is not available. You know, it's the same problems even in the urban areas. I think we'll open it for discussion, and we'll take your questions. We also have a lot of doctors here, and if they want to share their experience or, you know, tell the people how they are doing it better on the ground level, I'll be happy to have them also for discussion.
Thank you so much, Kedar. It was wonderful session. There are quite a few questions are piling up.
Okay, I'm just opening a chat window. Wait. So I'm taking from the first. Okay, hi Rani, good to see you. There is some other administrative messages. So there is a Rafakat Masroor, how the snake collection permits are awarded and to whom. from the wild or a captive bred for venom extraction. See, if anybody is interested in doing a venom extraction, you have to go to PCCF of your state, apply for permit, and every state follows the different protocols and quite a good protocol. Understand that it's not easy to start a snake extract or a snake venom extraction unit. Snake venom is used illegally in many of the places also. So there is a lot of big wildlife trade of illegal snake venom also. So it's not easy to find out a good people also. But WHO has come out with a venom extraction guidelines. You cannot just catch a snake and extract venom and use for antivenom. You probably will get a little ineffective or a little less potent antivenom. So there is a good guidelines for venom extraction given, and I think probably every state need to follow, whether the person who is applying for the permit follows those guidelines, follows those SOPs or not. But in a local geography today, we need a local venom extraction to make a better antivenom into local geographies. Shanti Upadhyay, how much time delay is permissible before venom administration before antivenom administration, Shanti, to reverse venom effects? There is no thumb rule, Shanti here. As soon as possible. We do not know how much quantity of venom is injected, how everybody's body react to that venom. So there is no thumb rule. We only say as soon as possible. But if you have antivenom available, you have a symptomatic treatment available, and if patient is alive by the time it reaches the medical facility, nobody will die. You can save each and everybody, provided you have antivenom, other resources like ventilator, dialysis, symptomatic treatment is available in those areas. Jose Matthew, I know about venom collection centers in Chennai. Where else it is collected in India, and why only we use horse for antivenom production? Jose, yes, at the moment it's only Erula Cooperative supported by MCBT, Madras Crocodile Bank Trust in South India, which is extracting venom and selling it for antivenom production. We do not have any other than Hopkins Institute, but Hopkins Institute also produce venoms, but probably use it for their own antivenom production, but the quantity is very less. Again, as I said, venom extraction and permission to extract venom, sell it, is all controlled under Wildlife Act. So it's not easy to start anything immediately as such. But at the moment, yes, there is only one South Indian extraction center where can we use venom for antivenom production. Why only we use horse for antivenom production? Equine model is a very well proved model for such kind of antibody, raising such antibodies. So lot of antibodies for lot of diseases and vaccines are produced in equine model. Similarly, horse is a animal, if you do a little gradually increasing dosages venom into its body, it produces antibodies against the venom of different snakes, and which you can use. Thanks, Poonam, for compliment. Up to what, Rohan Mathias, up to what elevation can we expect to find crates in the Nilgiris? Do we have antivenom for them? Why don't we have a single antivenom just for common crate? Rohan, we can have a single antivenom, but many times we don't know what snake is bitten, only single crate antivenom, if there is a confirmed crate bite, can be work, but many times we don't know what kind of snake is bitten somebody. That's why we do not have a monovalent antivenom available. We have only polyvalent antivenoms available, because we do not have a system in a place to identify what snake bites you. There are no, ELISA test or a rapid test on ground to understand what kind of snake has bitten you. In South India, particularly, you are talking about Nilgiris. I don't know at what elevation, probably David can give that, but I have seen it at least around 1200 meters to 1500 meters. I don't know what else higher elevation in the Western Ghats there. David, you can answer it much better.
I think it goes up to about 1500 and all there. People have seen it.
Yeah, that's what I have also seen it around 1500 meter there in Nilgiris. Aniruddha Nipani, you have to develop an antivenom for white-lipped pit viper. What are the procedures you have to carry out? Please explain the scientific as well as the legal approaches you would require to do the same. See, scientific approach is the same like what we are doing for polyvalent antivenom serum. You need a horse to inject venom and raise antibodies. There are very well established protocols and systems in a place with different companies, or you can start, you need to take a help of veterinarians to start a horse stable where you can do all this work. The legal requirements are a lot. To catch those snakes, you need a legal permit. To extract venoms, carry that venom to your lab, also you need a legal permits, which can be given by the forest department locally of a local states. But if it is needed in that area, and if you're talking about Himachal Pradesh, where the more bites of white-lipped pit viper, the septitudinalis is there. I think in Himachal you have a Kasuli Central Research Institute, which I think have a capability of produce antivenom for white-lipped pit viper. But again, it all comes to sometimes economics. How many bites are there? Because it's an expensive process to produce antivenom. So it all comes to your epidemiological data, whether you are able to do that production of that antivenom on ground or not. Rahul Chauhan, is there a difference in intensity effect-wise of antivenom produced from captive breed snakes as compared to wild varieties? Captive breed snakes, if it is, you have to collect for captive breeding, or you have to have a snakes from population of that local area. You cannot take a species from somewhere else and produce antivenom for that area, because many times this venom has been evolved for the prey species and habitat of that particular snake. So maybe the same species, as I told you, has a different variation across India. So if you have a producing antivenom for North India, and you have a North Indian snakes in a captivity, and you are going to breed them, yes, probably, because evolution doesn't happen over 50 years or 100 years. It happens for thousands of years. So they have that genetic imprint of that particular venom constituents, but you need to have a snakes from that population to do a captive breeding probably. And there is a very good guidelines by WHO about breeding such kind of snakes. Generally, we advise not to use snakes caught in a wild immediately, because those snakes can have a different diseases, can have a different parasite loads. So when you take a venom from them and inject into a horse, some other antigens also injected into the horse. So what antibodies you get may not be highly potent. So probably in today's antivenom, you may have antibodies around 20% for against venom toxins, and 80% for other diseases or viruses or bacteria which is found in the snakes. It can also happen. So generally we say that we need to don't take wild snakes immediately, extract venom and use it for antivenom, but probably quarantine them, see that they don't have any disease, treat them for any disease, and then start extracting venom. And then if you are going into the breeding, probably breed it local population of snakes for venom extraction. There are a lot of other research also happening, whether you can take these salivary glands and produce into tissue culture, so you don't need a live snake, and there are some good progressing happening into those kind of research too. Rajesh Pujari, is it necessary to know which snake has bitten a person in order to get a proper treatment? Many a times victim might not know which snake has bitten them. Yes, Rajesh, in today's we have only one polyvalent antivenom serum against all 4 common venomous snakes which are found in majority part of in India. So at the moment, with present resources, you don't need to know what snake has bitten you. If there is an envenomation and there are symptoms, there is only one medicine we have, that is a polyvalent antivenom serum. If you know in those areas where these snakes are found and some new snake or other species are there, then probably you need to know what kind of snake has bitten you, because just giving antivenom serum without any need also can be sometimes problematic into patients. But in majority of the areas where these 4 common snakes are found, you don't need to identify which snake it is. That's why we have a polyvalent or a polyspecific antivenom. So in the areas where we know, we confirm that only these 4 common species are causing bites, not into the area where there are different species, then we probably can tell doctors also to move from species diagnosis to symptom diagnosis, because there are no other species, only this species, and there are these bites found in those areas where you have only one polyvalent antivenom. Vivek Kulkarni, what is percentage of snake rescuers losing life? Huge. We have a lot of snake rescuers goes into snake showing and doing, those kissing snakes, handling them, and then ultimately losing their lives because they don't follow the protocols. So there is quite a big number of snake rescuers in India who generally goes without following any SOPs to do show-offs, have lost their life to snake bites. Josna Nirula, if production is not an issue, what is the reason for so much government control over the antivenom administration? Isn't it better to make it easily available to private hospitals, doctors? Antivenom availability is not controlled, Josna. Even a production is also quite a good number is there. The administration is controlled because as it's a horse serum, it can give an anaphylactic shock in certain cases. So a person can sometimes, if there is anaphylactic shock, can die because of anaphylactic shock, not because of the venom. That's why it need to be only given under medical supervision. And availability of private hospitals and doctors, if they want, they can buy it and they can keep it. There is no rule says that private hospitals cannot keep antivenom or private doctors cannot keep antivenom. Actually, we support a lot of private hospitals, because generally in our rural areas we have seen that many times government doctors transferred. 6 to 7 months doctors keep changing. So training every doctor in the system is always a big issue. So we also train private hospitals in the rural areas because those private hospitals are not going to run away from there. And probably they will charge for treatment, but at least there will be a treatment available. But there is no rule that a private hospital or a doctor cannot buy antivenom. Girija KP, is there any side effects of antivenom treatment? Is the polyvalent effective in king cobra bite? Polyvalent is not effective in a king cobra bite. There may be little paraspecificity into present antivenom with some of the cobra venoms like king cobra or a monocellate cobra. But the data is still, a lot of people are doing research on that. But king cobra bites, probably the volume is huge, if a venom is injected. So I don't think any of our antivenom will work. But hardly king cobra bite cases are very, very negligent. Probably I only know some of the snake rescuers who has done some, foolishness with the king cobras, got bitten and died. But I have yet to come out with any other than the snake rescuers getting bitten by king cobra. Patrick David, is the compensation for snakebite victims uniform throughout India? No, Patrick. Every state has only 6 states specifically give. Other states don't give the compensation. But West Bengal is an MP is probably highest with a 4 lakh rupees for every snakebite victim. And there are a lot of it goes through the district commissioners. Haryana, Punjab Himachal has 1.5 lakh rupees. Even the cattle and goats killed by snake bites also get compensation in those states, but it's not at all uniform. And we need to discuss this whole compensation schemes in details, because we have seen in rural area in a panchayat system many times some other deaths are also reported as a snake bite to take the compensation, because it's very difficult in a postmortem report to define other than the doctor who is treating, or if you just get somebody and says that he died because of snake bites, in a postmortem it's very difficult to tell or find out the venom, traces of venoms into the patients. So it's a little complicated system. So many times at the district commissioner office, if generally, if you know that there is a real snake bite death in a hospital system, then compensation is given. In panchayat systems, many times a wrong compensation is also given. But I also seen in the rural areas in some cases, that's why I'm saying we need to discuss this whole scheme of compensation a lot, that people go to mantrik and tantrics, and when the patient dies, they bring only to the PSCs or government system so they can claim compensation sometimes. So probably we need to start doing that. The compensation will be only given if the patient is taken to PSCs or CSCs instead of tantrics and mantriks. So we need a lot of different uniform protocols into compensation given. At the moment, it's random, very, very random. Vivekanand Kumar, what about the compensation schemes? I just answered that. And venom extractor kit doesn't help in any kind of extracting venom from any kind of bite, there are a lot of like a Sawyer's extractor kit. I can send you the scientific papers where scientists have taken a mock venom, type it's, and radioisotope is put with that and injected into human patients like a snake injects, and then use these extractors. The only some oozing liquid with little blood has come, but no mock venom has been seen into the liquid which has extracted out. So probably we know that venom acts very fast. It gets attached to the cells very fast. So these extractors have not been successful to extract venom at all. So do not get into these extractors at all. Rohan Mathis, what is illegal snake venom used for? Interesting question. There are a lot of forest departments in a raid take 10 liter and 12 liters of snake venom. I don't think that's actually a snake venom. Probably some other things which they are selling as a snake venom. But a lot of people, as in India, it's a control product and it's very expensive. Probably a cobra venom per gram is around 10,000 rupees. Crate venom is around 20,000 rupees. It's expensive than the gold. So many times certain things happen where I'm not taking any names or I'm not getting into controversies. The venom is resourced for making antivenom production also illegally many times. Many times people extract venom without any permission from forest department. And the you need to have a really good storage, really good process of venom extraction to get a better antivenom. But there are a lot of efforts happening in India, which doesn't follow any guidelines, which doesn't follow in any permit systems kind of thing here. Sarath Champati. Hey, thanks, Sarath. Vinod Venugomal, people who go trek to forest get bitten by snakes like Malabar pit viper, dark moth with no or limited knowledge or snakes. What precautions they need to take care after the bite? Explaining the doctor. Probably if you know that you are bitten by a Malabar pit viper, surely, and if you go to a doctor just under observation, please tell doctors not to give you any antivenom, because our present antivenom doesn't work. And there are no fatalities of a Malabar pit viper. Probably there is a swelling and little coagulopathy, and you need to do a symptomatic treatment. But please do not tell doctor if you know that it's a Malabar pit viper to give you antivenom. Sangeeta Mani, what happens in the case of people who have allergic reaction to antivenom? Anaphylactic shock is a reaction every doctor know how to treat. You have to suppress the immune system because you cannot stop antivenom. For a momentary, the antivenom is stopped if there is anaphylactic reaction. The patient's immune system is suppressed by using hydrocortisone or adrenaline. There are different treatments given to manage anaphylactic reaction. And once the anaphylactic reaction is managed, the antivenom is started again. Because if there is envenoming, you have to give antivenom. You cannot stop it. Sunil Sachi. Hi Sunil, I think I already answered that. Bamboo pit viper, Malabar pit viper, keep under observation, do symptomatic treatment, no antivenom should be given. Babu Chinnasamy, can an individual buy antivenom? You will need a prescription from a doctor to buy antivenom. It's a prescribed drug. So you will it's not an over-the-counter drug. So it's a prescribed drug. So you need a doctor's prescription to buy the antivenom. But if you have probably people and you have a snake around you, have a doctor around, but you don't have antivenom, you can take a prescription, buy it and store it at your end, but don't use it without medical supervision. Jose Matthew, how is the antivenom produced in other countries, say in US or Australia? Do they use the same antivenom for any snake bite, or do they have a specific ones? US, Australia, many of the South American countries also have a specific antivenoms. They have a very good system of antivenom production, and the health system is very evolved. The EMS system, like an emergency system, also evolved, and they do not have that many, whole culture of medically important snakes all around at a similar place. So probably they will know exactly what to use, but they have a very good antivenoms. Costa Rica is one country which is producing a very, very nice antivenom, and probably everybody should follow their protocols to produce antivenoms. But WHO has come out on the same model, different antivenom protocols, and probably as a potency wise, monovalent has an upper hand above polyvalent. But depending on whether you can identify a snake on the ground or not, then you should decide whether you need a monovalent or a polyvalent one. I think Chandan, you got answer of your any side effects of antivenom. Aniruddha Nipani, as I told you, a lot of programs with a lot of groups are happening. You can write to me and I can guide you more about voluntary opportunities. Abhinav Mishra, don't look at the marks and say whether it's a dry bite or venom bites. Marks are very, very confusing and not at all to be depended on. Shanti Upadhyay, is ptosis only a symptom to administer antivenom, or does it persist even after treatment? Sometimes, Shanti, if the venom is already acted, the antivenom is not going to neutralize that venom which is already acted. So probably you need to give a body a time to flush those toxins which is already acted, you know. So ptosis sometimes doesn't go, but in particular in neurotoxic venoms of cobra, a neostigmine or a prostigmine helps in reversal of ptosis and respiratory paralysis completely. So you can use those kind of drug, but I am not a doctor to advise you more. The protocols gives you all these guidelines and you can download that protocol. Shubham Soni, what about the Hamnose viper? Do they cause significant number of bites? How lethal can it be? Shubham, yes, in our Western Ghats, in southern Western Ghats, there are a lot of number of bites of Hamnose viper. There are certain reports of mortality as well as morbidity, gangrene and other cases. So I think in some of the areas, Hamnose pit viper need a Hamnose pit viper antivenom in those areas. And probably that's why in some of those areas, our present antivenom doesn't work and you need to know if you are bitten by Hamnose pit viper. Otherwise, our present antivenom actually is no use at all there. Prakash, many groups go hopping in monsoons and also try to get snakes into positions for photo. Do these groups carry antivenom with them? You must have some experience with these groups, people. There are a lot of people who does that, and if they are carrying antivenom with them, thinking that they will get beaten, I think they should not go into the wilderness. You should, if you are photographing it, you should take enough precautions that you don't get beaten. And even if you carry antivenom, probably in those areas of wilderness, you will not find doctor to give it to you. So no use of that. If you are a dedicated snake researcher and you are working on certain venomous snakes in a particular area, and you know that that antivenom is available for those particular snakes, then you probably carry it and keep it with you. But I will not advise this to those people who go to photograph the venomous snakes into wild, you know. Take enough precautions, use longer lenses, have enough precautions. I just did a talk on how to photograph snakes and what precautions you take. It's available, you know, on Facebook, and you can use snake sticks and others, but I will advise take enough precautions at the time of photography. Don't carry antivenoms with you. Any other? Dilip Kalkavi Pure, in Thane district tribal areas, most death occurs due to crate bite. They call it Pach Pablo. Do they are snake repellent can be administered? Do our snake repellent can be administered and it is effectively work during monsoon season when deaths are more? There are nothing kind of a snake bite repellent, you know. There are a lot of products people will probably tell you about snake bite repellents and those devices which emits certain shock waves and all those. It doesn't work with snakes. Snakes are a higher vertebrates. Many of the repellents, their mode of action is they try to create, you know, snakes smell through their tongues. You know, so there is an organ called Jacobson organ. When snake flicks the tongue out, they take smell particles back to the Jacobson organ, and snakes comes to know what smell it is. So if there are some higher, you know, aromatic chemicals and compounds who are blocking the Jacobson organ, then sometimes snakes cannot smell and they try to move away from there. But it doesn't happen. It's like us that, you know, somebody will like some smell, somebody may not like some smell. You know, in snakes are also higher vertebrates. So in that, I haven't seen any kind of snake repellent working 100% or a 50% even. There may be effect 5 to 10% in certain cases. Those you know, pesticide used as a snake repellent, they will kill not only snakes but also other birds into the areas. So do not use those forates and other pesticide which is used generally as a snake repellent into rural areas. The best thing is, if the monsoon session is going to come and there are going to be snake bites all around, equip your PSCs with enough antivenoms, equip doctors with enough knowledge and trainings. I think PSC is the best point of contact for treating snakebite patients. If there is a respiratory failure and there is a ventilator needed, patient can be moved to CSCs where probably a ventilator is available. But in some areas, particularly Palghar district and Danu, if you think there is a need, then we can always get ventilators in those areas in private hospitals or clinics and train people how to intubate. You know, the biggest problem into our another health system, when I'm talking, it's not only antivenom. Many doctors doesn't know how to intubate the patients. Even there is ambibag or a ventilator available, nobody knows how to intubate, so the trainings for such kind of thing is also needed. So prepare your district health administration for challenges of ventilators, ambubag, medicines like antivenom, neostigmine, dialysis in some parts of the district. Many times you have to also do the plasma infusion. So, and the pathology support to the, to do the 20 WBCT and other pathological tests. So all these things need to prepare before the seasons of snakebite starts.
Thank you so
I
much.
think no
Kedar.
questions, David.
Yeah, there's one from Facebook. I mean,
Yeah.
just take one question. That is, how can we keep snakes away from house premises?
Keep
From
the
Pradeep.
that's a good question. I will say keep the lot of cleanliness around your house. Do not keep any debris all around where snake can hide. Keep your stored grain, food items, and have a good rodent control around you. If you are going to have a pathways or a walking ways all around your house, keep a good lighting in the night so you know if there is a snake around you. If you are going to walk in the darkness, use torches. If there is a lot of branches touching your windows and there are snakes around, probably you will see to that no tree branches and other things touching your windows or in your walls, where snake can climb inside. Snakes generally move, for two things. One, for the food, rats, geckos, lizards, frogs. So if you avoid the food coming into your house, snakes may not come behind them for food. Second thing, they come for shelter. If it's raining outside, they will need a place to hide. If it's too hot outside, they will need a cooler place to hide. So if you can avoid giving them shelter by removing debris and no rocks and grasses and leaf litter all around, probably will not get a snake around your house. So do a lot of cleanliness, carry torch while walking in the night. If you are sleeping on the ground and there are snakes around, use bed nets, so snakes do not come inside. Certain small prevention is always helps not to get bitten by snakes.
Okay, thank you so much, Kedar.
Thanks,
I think
David.
you're almost done with all the questions.
There is
It was
a
wonderful to hear you. We learned
David, my email ID is on the screen. So if
Yes.
anybody is interested in any more questions, if they know later,
Yes.
they can
Please.
write to me. Thanks, David.
Yeah, sorry, I got out of network. Yeah, so thank you so much, Kedar, once again, on behalf of both the Nature Society and Nature Kottayam
Thanks,
Nature
David.
Society
Yeah.
and Malapi, and we extend our thanks. Thank you so much, all of you.